This is good because then when I take the drawing up to the blue tape, it will keep this nice white border around the image, right? Which is gonna be pretty sick. Get my tools lined up for this. Got my pencil, Tombow, some blending sticks, plastic eraser, whatever's in this really dirty bag. Lots of stuff. Good. Yes, very dirty. Good. So you know it's good. And it's right next to the camera cap. That's good. The lens cap. Okay. Dirty gum eraser with my dirty plastic erasers. Yeah, maybe I'll keep this one for graphite. Dirty plastic eraser. Some kneaded erasers. Those are good. Ooh, this one feels a lot better actually. Wow, a variety of white charcoal pencils. Oh yeah, another sort of Tombow, some flat one. Charcoal pencil. Okay, white charcoal, white compressed charcoal. I've got my compressed charcoal. It's pretty soft. I've got a variety of charcoals from the general. I've got a bit of vine charcoal. It's gonna be my sketching buddy. I think that's all the really all the tools we're gonna need. So this video, we're gonna start with toning the paper because one of the advantages of working in charcoal is that it also offers us the opportunity to work well subtractively. So that's something that I see students struggle with often, is like conceptualizing how they're going to work subtractively. And it's helpful to get in that mindset, because then as you construct the image, you can sort of like, you can go through the path of least resistance, right? And it will offer you different marks. Anyways, very good thing to do. So to start with, we tone the paper. Yeah, I'm seeing to do it with the vine charcoal. Let's just do it with the vine. So to tone it, I just have the charcoal on the side. I'm not really putting a lot of pressure on it. All right, so first off, I'm going to sketch out the image. And to do that, I'm going to use the vine charcoal because it will... do I want to make marks? Yeah, why not? It will, you know, be obvious. I can see it. And then at the same time, if I don't like it, you can really almost just blow it away. But it's absolutely no problem erasing it, right? And if my finger weren't so dirty doing that, it would have been white. Okay. So I have a little still life set up. Remember again, we don't want any objects floating in space, right? Okay, what I do when I start a drawing, I think has been really helpful in this course, is sort of seeing general objects in the still life and then laying those down on the paper. Oftentimes I'm seeing triangles, and then I'm doing the technique where you kind of hold a pencil out at arm's length, and then you can use that to see, you can use it to make ratios across the image, or the still life rather. So if I'm using this and I go 1, 2, so it's like 2.5 by 1, 2.5 by 1.5. That's fine. And then sometimes you're lucky and you can actually just lay something on the page and it'll work as a ruler. So if I've got something a little longer than this, that might work out. So 1, 2, half. I can probably use this combo as a measure for that measurement. If I were to stick with the same tool throughout the drawing, I could continue to come back to the tombow, but I don't know that I will do that. So using that, I know it's going to be the edge of my objects. 1, 2, half. That would be the end of the objects. And that's not very well centered, so why don't we just go ahead and scoot it over, just use this as a guide. And that's a little bit too far maybe. So then maybe right here looks like a good place. So now I know that my objects are going to fall within these 2 lines. Okay, and then we know that it's 1.5 units tall. So 1, 2, so it's 1, or rather half. Let's redo that. Let's just redo that. Droop, droop, droop. Okay, so I think that's going to be about right. So let's go. Here we go. 1 and a half. So looking at this here being sort of the boundaries, and I think that's fine. It'll give us a little bit of room, a little bit of space for a backdrop on top. So I'm not too worried about that. And then this is going to sort of give us plenty of room to drop the scene in around the objects, because these lines are literally where the objects themselves are going to line up. And then I have a really good point of reference on this far end that is sort of the tip of the yam. And most of these objects are sort of laying in this triangle in between it. And then I can start breaking this thing down by, let's see, where objects will sort of fall on the thing, right? So if I go kind of try to grip my thing in the same place, try to grip the measuring tool in the same place, go in 1 from the side, and I'm bisecting the lemon on the right side. So, and I know that that's going to be relatively on the edge of my triangle. Okay, so bisecting the edge. Okay, and these are going to be relative. I mean, these are going to be really rough. We'll work with them, but they're a good way to just lay it out initially. And then what I'm getting here is if I go with the 1 unit measurement, this is going to be the edge of the pomelo and the okay. And then if I know that edge of the lemon, maybe I can go ahead and find the sort of this diameter that's a little inside, inching a little bit inside like 1 unit. Okay. And then the yam is also, he's about 3/4 of a unit. 3/4 of a unit. If that's the pomelo, I think that's probably generous. Okay. So I know that now. I know my yam is here. Tip is terminating there. So actually I know that my yam is probably mostly going to be down here. And let's just go ahead and lay down a yammy shape. And that's our guy right there. Okay, moving over. This is bisecting the mid lemon. It's a little bit bigger than the yam. A little nub on the bottom here. Kind of shadow here, but we won't come to shadows yet, probably. Let's just lay the objects down. Just touching this side, we have the other lemon. So we already know these measurements are not very good. But let's just go ahead and bump them both over. this lemon actually needs to be much lower. I think it's going to sit here. I think that this lemon is going to sit here because I forgot that this was the lowest point in the still life, and therefore that's where it needs to start on the bounding box. So then if that's happening, our pomelo is, maybe we can put it right here. It's a pretty big fruit, and the coffee mug is actually touching the lemon. So the coffee mug's actually got to come in, right? Nice. And then its little handle is shooting off the back, hitting this line, which is perfect because that's where we want this coffee mug to live and die. Still not loving the way this lemon's working, but this is going to be a bit of a speed run, so we're going to get through it. Roughly, I'm feeling good about this. Maybe the pomelo needs to get a little bit bigger, and maybe our yam needs to scoot a little bit. Which is, of course, no problem. You just bounce it. Because I'm just looking at this gap here, and I want to make sure that that's about right. Now that I've got generally where everything's going to be at, I can sort of work around, try to get the objects to look a little bit more accurate, and make sure that they sort of are relating well. And this again, if you're having trouble identifying the shapes, it's good to break the objects down into sort of base shapes like squares, circles, triangles that you'll be able to relate to the object. For instance, if this yam is just like a little truncated. Okay, there we go. I'm done finicking with the yam. So, you know, if I'm looking at this yam and I'm trying to figure out what shape it is, I've got pretty good way to make a triangle here, right? And then I can sort of lay that down and get those proportions right. I don't know if that helps you. Sometimes that's helpful. And so this one's a lumpy one. I got it because it was pretty lumpy. And these I just picked up. I just went to TJ's. Be like sort of a variety of sizes, but also be somewhat interesting to draw, and a variety of textures, just circles, you know. And if you wanted, you could just get like oranges, right? Just to learn how the tools work. You're only going to get better at this with practice. Like, there's no fast track, unfortunately. Feeling pretty good about that. The organic shapes are very forgiving, you know, they're very forgiving. We love them. Because I think it's just too big. Because it's not a sphere, actually. You kind of have to be careful to sit in the same spot, otherwise the image will get messy pretty quick, even if you're just shifting around by like a couple inches or something. Okay, and then my guide, you know, it was just a rough guide. It's okay that we don't have to stick to it, you know? And this is probably a good time to get rid of it because the measurements are all just going to be off a bit. It's really not a process of just like nailing it down in the beginning. It's really a process of like getting close and then sort of looking at the errors, assessing the errors, and inching it towards something more accurate. So don't worry, you know, you can spend hours on the initial sketch attempting to get it right, but I mean, it's honestly, it's good to work fast, and it is a skill you can learn. Just because the nature of these things is that you end up reworking and reworking the image, and you want to give yourself time to do that. No, I think this guy just got too big. I just don't think it's that big. I'm just not that familiar with them. We're not that close. Never have objects just floating in the void, even if it is gray. Okay. Another thing that's really helpful when trying to sketch out relationships between these objects is to go ahead and put the shadows down. And then that's also telling me that, the table's way too long. It doesn't need to go that far. I guess just to lay out what's happening, there's somewhat diffuse light coming in. Actually, it's pretty diffused by the time it's getting to these. Coming in through the windows on the right side. There's really not much reflecting it on the left side. And so everything's lit from the right. There is a shadow being cast from the pomelo onto the yam, and from the mug onto the pomelo. There's a bit of a shadow cast right here. And then this is stainless steel, so it's reflecting a lot of things, right? That's reckless, that's crazy. Much closer, okay. That's good. That's good. Who knows? I think the lemons got too big. I think they come in here and then they just... Sometimes also it helps just to like stand up, step away from the piece, and then get a new perspective, come back and assess it. I think I know where everything's at, basically. And then the other thing that I have actually just not really been doing right now is that because we're working subtractively at this point, I can start to use the eraser to sketch out areas. So with these plastic erasers, a heavy hand is going to get it to remove material, and a light touch is going to just kind of spread it around. So you can use both of those to your advantage. This is a good articulation of reflected light, sort of making the bottom of the object a little bit lighter, because there's light bouncing off the table up into this. So the closer the mug gets to the table, the more reflected light it gets, because after the light reflects off the table, it's not going to be very strong, so it's not going to be able to like travel and illuminate that much. It's pretty good to leave things a little bit ill-defined at this point. We're just kind of getting areas in the ballpark value because we're really not making the drawing too tight at this point. And then I'm seeing this reflected light bouncing off of the lemon. You can see it in the photo. It's a little bit yellow here on the mug. This is also a time when we start laying charcoal down, but I think it's best to stay away from the pencil. The nature of the tool just tends to leave a mark that's really difficult to erase. And because we're still sort of making very loose associations at this point, I would just use the compressed charcoal stick. I like to sort of grind off the hard edges and give myself a more consistent tool. And just a little bit here too, and I'm just lightly dragging this across the page right now. I'm definitely not grinding it in. I'm not really putting that much charcoal down. import of the shadow is actually going to be about here because the other lemon is reflecting light back into the little guy. This, of course, is where the pomelo is casting his shadow on the yam. And then the reflected objects, especially if they're cylindrical, just end up being like a striping situation of different tones. And I can also just go ahead and sketch with my eraser right now. That's totally chill. Totally chill. Pretty happy with that. That's fine. Okay, it's a starting point. The yam's not as reflective. It's kind of a matte object. All the citrus are kind of a little more glossy and typically kind of covered in wax, so, you know, they're gonna be brighter. Okay, so in the table I can actually see a bit of a reflection of these objects. I'm not going to go crazy with it. I'm just going to allude to it because I think it might kind of sell the image a bit. Sometimes it's just those little details that you got to get to make it look believable, and then it's like, you know, even if everything else is way off, this kind of tricks your mind into being like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, let's get the blending sticks out. Oh my god. Okay, so the blending stick is a cool tool, but also it is just gonna remove all texture. It's a very smooth tool, but that's okay. For now, we can go ahead and use it. Don't grind it into the paper. You don't want to, don't really want to compress the texture of the page, because that is what's fundamentally going to hold charcoal. We want to make sure we maintain the page's texture. I don't know if any of you are familiar with a burnisher, but if you were to press too hard, you're effectively burnishing your page, which is a tool that just flattens it out. Okay, so I'm going to pick up that compressed charcoal now with the blending stick, and on this one I'm just going to go ahead and knock that down because it's pretty awful, and I think that actually it going up right here is part of the problem as well. Okay, yeah, maybe it won't be so bad soon, but also because we're just kind of doing a loose pass, it's totally going to be fine. It's going to work out. With the blender, you can work in tandem with your eraser and your charcoal, and just sort of like remove material, add material as you need. Mistakes will be made, in fact. In fact, the process is designed to accommodate for those errors so that we can rework it. Because we know we're not going to get it right the first time. It would be crazy. The plastic eraser is not quite as good at just pulling charcoal out as the gum is, but it does sort of offer you a little bit more variation before you get to that point. I think, I don't know. Let me know. Drop it in the comments. How do you use erasers? Which one's your favorite? Which one is your least favorite? Is there an eraser you've ever encountered that you didn't enjoy? Blending stick is going to do two things. It's going to knock the tone down. It's going to make it lighter than we had left it with the charcoal, and it's going to make it smoother, which is fine because I think that we're going to rework this drawing one more time, and in that pass we will have all the opportunities we want to go over the same areas lightly with our charcoal to leave a nice texture. Crooked. Okay, and then I think that something like that is fine. I don't know. We have to start making decisions about how we're going to simplify the image, right? Unless we're just going to draw this for days on end, we're never going to capture all the detail that's in these objects. And it's best for us to pretty quickly learn to decide what detail is and is not going to make it in the final image. Because, it's going to be a relatively consistent amount of detail, and then at the same time just pulling out little bits that are going to make the image function. Kind of like just a little bit of that reflection in the table, I think is going to go a long way. But I'm probably not going to draw the wood grain in the table, right? So this mug for me has become a place where I'm just trying to understand where it went wrong, right? Pretty much given up on the idea that it's going to be salvageable. But that doesn't mean that I can't learn from this mistake. And I think that somewhere in it, I got confused with the handle and wanted the ellipse to sort of line up with that, when in actuality it's sitting pretty well in front of that. Still looks so crooked. It's looking marginally better on camera. So that's a big win. It's good enough for the last pass, I guess. Let's just call it that. And then now we're going to go through the drawing and tighten up some areas. We're going to sort of, like I started talking about, we're going to bring out those details that we think are really going to make the image pop. And just kind of make it all look cohesive. Make it look like it's real, kind of, is the name of the game quite soon. No idea what I did with that, but it's nice sometimes to be able to take a few hours away from the image, or even come back the next day and just have a fresh look at it. And then sometimes it's just really difficult to pull yourself out of that. And then if you just come back the next day, those areas will become obvious. I guess maybe even the mug is a really good example of that. Where it's like despite looking at it and knowing it was a problem, I was having a really difficult time assessing yesterday what it was that was happening in the mug that made it so confusing. So I think that we're also in a place with the drawing where all of the tone on the page, well, the significant tone anyways, should be compressed charcoal. Sometimes with the blending stick too, it's just nice to work up a nice dark spot here that you can then just grab and drop in. And then you can just get directly to the mark and not have some awkward system of like laying it down and pulling it off. It's never that great. It's not really awesome. I like that. I like that. Pretty good. That spout just kind of came out of nowhere, so that's good. I'm feeling a little bit more adventurous after that. These little technical erasers are just so good. And so I guess now I'm like I really am into the next pass on the drawing, where I am going to start tightening things up. I'm probably not going to get into the charcoal pencils on this pass. I might, depending on exactly how everything's looking, but I don't know for sure. And especially with this like video setup already being a little bit awkward, it's hard for me to tell what is and is not going to be a good idea. We'll see. We'll see. Even if it's off, it's too late. Too late in the game to be too worried about it. Oh, this paper is just really like bubbling up, and then try to lay it flatter. More flatly. It is a couple sheets of paper taped on top of each other, which is good so I don't pick up the texture of the drawing board, but I think it is against me right now. If we were to list things that we're going to draw from like smooth to gritty, the brush steel is going to be definitely on the smoother side of the continuum, but maybe one of the grittier over there, whereas something like glass is just going to be super smooth. And then organic objects are typically just going to have a little more texture and these are, the more a slight variation, right? Which is really what we have for the reflection, is just a slight variation will stand out. And then everything that reads as like these lines stacking on top of each other is going to tell us and our viewer, oh, that's a reflective object, right? So now I started using the pencil just because I think this area is close enough that if I do use the pencil here, I'm probably gonna be basically done with the area. I don't know that there's much more detail to pull out of it. Because I know I haven't worked over this layer yet, a lot of these marks I could and probably ought to just go ahead and bring into the top of the mug, because then whenever I work the mug, I know that there won't be a little halo between the mug and the French press. Because if you have these little areas between all of the objects that are kind of like ill-defined and like approached in a very timid manner where you're afraid to work it because you're afraid it's not going to quite be right, and you like just keep putting it off And so instead of having like one definitive edge that is, 75% correct, you have like 3 or 4 50% correct, and it just looks like neurotic. It's not good. It's a bad look. We don't want that. Just say YOLO. Let's YOLO that. Really don't be YOLOing as much as we ought to anymore. Yeah, have you noticed that? Have you noticed that? People just don't YOLO anymore. A lot of times, especially if you're trying to lay down some sharp lines, it's good to get an X-Acto. Oh, good. Good. This is good. Nice, that's starting to look fruity. And then, oh, how crazy do I get with this? I think this might be a place where the textures of the tools can help me out. Or I can make this highlight kind of read like the skin of a citrus if I just kind of do it in a scumbly way. Scribbly, rather. Yeah, what if we start with the scumble to let those little dark spots exist inside of it, and then we'll move to a little bit more of a stipple to make these brighter spots around it. Because I do want some darker spots in the middle, but if I can just get it with the blend stick. Wow, that was pretty dark. You know, stepping back from the drawing, I feel pretty good about that. The only thing that I hesitate to make it even this detailed really because I don't intend on continuing the detail of that texture throughout the rest of the fruit or any of the other citrus fruits for that matter. Best for me. We don't really want lines in these images unless it is just describing a shadow so thin that it becomes a line, because what we want to do is we're moving away from line work right now, and we're moving into describing objects using areas or planes of tones. Again, using my eraser to define that outside edge. A lumpy vibe. The vibe is lumpy. It's giving lumpy. And this one, because it is sort of a matte object, I'm going to keep those marks really pronounced so we get that nice texture buildup. I think that that's going to really help us sell the root veggie vibe. And here where it's getting a little more stripy, we're going to kind of go with the texture on that stripe. with a little bit of reflected light that I guess is going to come down into a pretty hard shadow where the table is going to meet the yam, and I guess that let's come in with the charcoal pencil, give the shadows, like work the shadows down into the table while offering some harder lines where it makes sense, and maybe even just sort of tightening up the back edge. And right now I can just go ahead and work a little gradient here between my subjects. And I think that is actually going to end up being pretty helpful relatively soon, just as something to work in on top of, because like as we're layering all of the subjects, the background's not getting any of that attention right now, which as we make more detailed drawings will be not how we work. So again, working with the gradients that are already in place and then just taking them down where it's appropriate. And then also I'm going to come in and knock down this highlight in some areas. Let me know. Drop it in the comments. This would also be a really good time for me to step away from the drawing, walk up to the still life, really look at it and see what is it that's happening in there. I think I'm just gonna use my eraser now to also make some marks that are not only going to make that area lighter, but also continue that sort of banding texture across. Okay, I have the shadow coming off of this, and it's a few shadows crossing over, and it almost makes like a little diamond shape here. And I'm going to take that all the way down to 9. And I don't need to use the pencil on this. In fact, the stick is probably a little more appropriate, because the stick is not going to compress the paper as much, and it's still going to give us a really rich tone. So
No matter where you find yourself, no matter what kind of stuff is going on in your life, underneath it all, everything's actually all right.
honestly, at the 2-hour mark,
You're okay.
I feel like I'm really just hitting my stride.
You have more power than
I think that
you might be giving yourself credit
I always advocate for students
for.
to
Going on in your life.
warm up before they start working into their drawing.
A reminder to a little bit better.
I've already got this shadow mapped out here,
Worth it.
and I think that it's pretty good. And I think that it comes here and here, and then that's it. I'm going to cut back into the pomelo in the back so that I have that edge worked out well. This lemon's a bit lumpy, which is cool. in a similar manner to what I did on the Pomelo, this one's going to be a little more complicated. And because it's so much more complicated, I want to go ahead and drop the shadows in, because they are a little less precise, especially if I'm drawing the texture with this compressed charcoal stick. And this is one of the real benefits of learning to work subtractively as well, is that now that I know how to do that, I know that it's okay to just go ahead and work the entire lemon over with this charcoal stick, because everything that needs to come back up will have no problem getting there. Or everything that needs to become lighter will have no problem getting there, right? And it's going to offer me the ability to just give this whole thing texture really quickly, which is really positive. I have to remain conscious that I cannot drag my hand through any of this, right? Not that any of us would. This is going to be a moment where I'm going to go ahead and just clear this thing. If you clear the eraser, you won't need as much pressure for it to pull the charcoal out of the paper. So with it being cleared, I can really just do a pass. That's going to give me that nice, sort of elegant line. Okay, I wasn't really trying to work texture into that just yet, but I guess I was doing the same movements, which is a really helpful thing to learn as you work, is that, certain movements are going to make certain textures, and if you can tone it with that movement, you will render it with that texture. There we go. It's kind of a lemon is kind of popping out right now. Clear the eraser and kind of pull that stuff off, and then we'll just start really laying in some big chunky and thick, waxy, fleshy highlights, as if we were just gonna peel this lemon, We're just peeling it on the paper, and we know what that looks like, we know what that feels like. And so we're going to relate that to the feeling in the image. Do it with all of the joy and excitement of eating some orange slices at halftime in your Little League soccer game. Boom, that almost looks believable. Almost believable is pretty good. And what's going to give this form is just really controlling the highlights, the shadows, and how fast that gradient's going to drop off. Let's work into it with the pencil. And if you really want to rest it, you can use something like a stick or your arm to support, right? So that then you don't have all the leeway and error of your whole arm. You just have that error inside of the wrist. More so defining it by dropping, oof, this is the problem with the charcoal pencil, is with that mark, I wasn't even hardly making a mark, but I was digging into the paper. That's one of the reasons we use the charcoal pencil dead last, because while it is good for laying in detail, it also is good for scratching the paper as if that were actually what it was meant to do, and it's really just not. Okay, and I mean, you know, you can get like infinitely finicky with these things, but it's good to sort of keep in mind every time you approach it, especially with a new tool, just keep in mind what it is you're attempting to do and sort of keep yourself aligned to those intentions, because it's so easy to just hyperfixate on something and just find yourself in the weeds. Four down, 2 to go. This thing is really starting to annoy me right now, which I'm gonna give myself just a moment to indulge in that, and then I'm gonna step away from it for good. And I'm feeling a little more warmed up with this texture now too, so I am just going to go ahead and continue some of that back. I'm not going crazy with it, but just where like I see, you know, definitely there are lines running through the image that don't correspond to the object and are not really not helpful. Subjects in the environment, they can't be in a situationship, right? We gotta define, we hang these things. And I know that's difficult, and nobody really likes teasing that out, but we have to. Logic blender, let's go. This is good. Sort of mimicking the tabletop. I like how this direction is working with the shadow. While we do want to work the area so that it has similar tone, we don't want to lose where those highlights are. Alright, and then once more with feeling. Also, with these hard edges, no shame in laying down a ruler and just going along the side of it, right? Again, working subtractively and additively side by side so that we can get really good looking marks. Just good to kind of pop between objects, work all over the image type vibe. Okay, this next lemon is actually far less complicated. I don't know why I have, well, I guess it's fair to have the, I need to keep one of these clean, just the point. It's fair to have the reflected shadow right here. That makes sense. The highlight right here. Attempting to reflect the shadow off the table, which really just bleeds into this area, so I don't know that that's really going to do much. And then, I mean, the light really must have been just different yesterday because this doesn't really do anything for me now. Had to have been a light. I couldn't have made this error. That would be unbelievable. But you are, of course, working up to the edge of the paper. Because there's no reason to buy these beautiful large sheets of paper and then decrease your image by like half the size. Why would you do that? Don't be like me, you know? And then, oh, I guess that's the reflected light from the mug. That's why we have that darker stripe. It's just exaggerated. I guess it was pretty well laid out. I just didn't realize how exaggerated it had become. this area is going to be a bit awkward. It needs to get a little darker so that we know the two are touching, but other than that, this reflected light's working really well. This needs to probably match about that in that zone. In fact, this is probably going to be the lightest tone we get on that side. Really, this is just working like the theoretical sphere right now. Everything is just falling off from this highlight on the left. We are just staying on the front with the exception of the light reflecting off the table. Really same on the back with the exception of the interruption of the low fruit's navel here. Beautiful. Talk about the viewer all the time, but yeah, it's all for me. Okay, I feel good about this. Let's go. And like we always do, just paying attention to the textures that are already in the drawing and playing off those so that we're working with what's already there as opposed to trying to impose our will upon it. This is nice, kind of smoothing out the little scumbles. Give it that nice waxy feel. Yeah, well, it's not the best of them. Yeah, it's really not the best. Let's go. Let's do it one more time. Just work back into it. It's just that I'm just not getting quite the rhythm that I need in here to make this thing look like the same surface as the other two. If it was standing alone on a page, I don't think it would be any issue, but because we have these others that I think the viewer is going to sort of key in on these being the same, I think it's going to be for the best. I think it's really going to make the viewer go, oh, hey, that's what that is. A little bit of this texture here. We have a lemon. We really have lemon. All right. Let's lay down the navel on that thing, define the edges. I think that it's pretty much fine on top, and the less I deal with that, the better. Just make sure that we don't have any sort of mid-tone highlight crossing that border between the pomelo and the lemon, just to make that line sharp. Same thing between the lemon and the table right here, and then defining the relationship right here again. Now, if you find yourself ever like having to outline around the entire object, you're kind of doing it wrong. Even in little moments like that, when we're really in the swing of things, really the difference between tone and texture ought to make the object stand apart. Great, now we're just down to the friggin' mug and cleaning drop. Looking pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. And then yeah, that's just lit like a cylinder, and actually the fall off is definitely going to be further to the left. Okay, then we have the reflected light from the lemon. We have the shadow, still limiting. The shadow it shares with the lemon. This sort of network of shadows, we'll see where that will go. And then this all actually drops off much more smooth than the lemon situation. Get the bigger one, just to lay in some very like geometric, like, okay, this is the mid-tone fall off. Okay, I like the way this is going. I think that the only thing is that sort of all of our highlights are about the same tone right now, which we need to address. I'm gonna come in with this. I'm gonna use this blender stick with some charcoal on it to really just even out the top. I'm just going to make this line, and then when it comes time to work back in here and erase this, I'll just have that really light gray line that's going to separate the mug from the background. That'll look good, I think, if it works. ceramic's one of those objects too, because it is sort of glass laid over top of a material. Like a really nice hard highlight is going to read for the viewer like, oh, okay, for sure, of course, this is ceramic. That's the point of that. Yeah, I don't really know what to think of that highlight because it needs to be whiter. Maybe that's going to be a place where I can just come in with the white charcoal pencil and just lay down a hard white line that's going to work. I don't even know if that's going to register. I don't know, maybe it looks awesome on camera, let's hope. Usually it's like these things on camera just look like what have you been doing? I just probably look like a crazy person. I don't think there's any way that the material of this mug is gonna read in the drawing. I think it's only ever just gonna look like the artist has put really heavy lines on the drawing. So I think that I'm going to stop with that, and I'm just gonna go back into working the body of the mug. Right now, that just looks like defining where this thing is coming in contact with the French press in the back. I think the back side of this line is the best description of it. And then here where it's just really kind of nasty, I might just go ahead and lay a line down. Just because I've already made such a mess of that area without the line, I think that the viewer is going to just see a mess. That zone is pretty good. Where this shadow comes across and behind the lip here, and then it terminates, or maybe it doesn't terminate, but it just starts to integrate with that drop shadow, not drop shadow, but that interior shadow on the other side. I am going to simplify the cylinder. This is one of those areas where it's like, it's a bummer because it has really great texture and I would really love to be able to render that. But at this scale, I don't think there's any way that's going to go over well. I think that that's almost just for sure going to ruin this part of the image. Looks fake, is a little fake. And then of course, right next to it is just an area that looks like doo-doo. The thing you really have to be careful with when you come back with this pencil is that you're not going over a spot with loose charcoal. The minute you go over a spot that has active charcoal, loose charcoal on top of it, this tool is just going to slide through that, and you're going to just start making these really awkward, muddy lines. not all of the highlights. It is a little bit, it's kind of nice for building that texture back up. I'm getting like some options to like really build that while bringing it up a lot brighter. It just goes into just totally like a theoretical cylinder shade mode. Despite having found where those highlights are, I was making them too bright in relation to the midtones next to them. And that was just really making it look fake. It's good. Again, just like the theoretical cylinder, we have the reflected light hitting the bottom, bouncing off the table and illuminating that front edge of the cylinder. Let's make sure that the ellipse matches with the top. That reflected light is also bouncing off of the lemon and hitting the cylinder. So let's make sure that we have that, especially as that butts up to that shadow. That's going to look good. Laying that reflected light down as it wraps around the mug. All right. This is, I think that's the mug. So we can start in the midtone then. And light passes, kind of circular motion, and then we'll drag it from midtone into the highlight, giving us a really soft gradient. I think that is the mug. It looks good to me. I hope it looks good on screen. Probably not best to use your fingers because you will pick up whatever oils and stuff are on your hands or things you touch. So, I mean, really that reflected light really comes up quite close to the mug. Yeah, now we're going to bring that technical eraser right up to the mug, the moment we've all been waiting for. We're going to leave a really brief edge where this white runs off into gray so that we don't lose the edge of this mug. And I'm probably going to get in the cameras way really fast because I gotta get up close and personal. time for the yam. Really the unsung hero of the still life. Whose funky form holds down the entire left side of the page. I'm really second guessing this decision. I don't know why I decided to do this. It's not technically what one ought to do, and I think in the end it's actually going to make the image look very silly. So, whatever. I guess whatever is actually the take home with that. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means for us. But that's it. Find a place where it doesn't matter if things get dirty.